we have our special guest talking about a special person. A couple of months ago, we had Women's History Month where we focused on women in history, and various people spoke about various people. And we had one that didn't get a chance to do it that night. We did a couple of last month. We squeezed those in. They had gotten ill or whatever, but Rosalind Carter didn't get a chance to do her speech on the first woman president of Toastmasters International. So she has a little bit of information. You actually may get to see Helen Blanchard speak, the late Helen Blanchard speak, and you'll get a chance to hear Ross Carter, our past district governor. Am I right? That right? You were still a governor when you did that? Past district governor, past regional
Yes.
advisor, past
Yes.
regional advisor, Rosalind Carter. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, take it away.
Okay. I want to ask Rob Gunneman, do you have my video ready? Okay, he's going to show it in just a few minutes, not yet. But that's the lady of the hour, Helen Blanchard, who said, if you get out of Toastmasters all you can get out of Toastmasters, you'll never get out of Toastmasters. That's the lady, Helen Blanchard, who quoted that years and years, decades ago. And it has stuck in my mind. I've been in Toastmasters for 20 years. Never thought I would say that, but there are many people like Michael Osier and even Tom Jameson who exceeds that, like by 50 years, Tom, in being Toastmasters. And why do we want to stick around? Why do we stay in Toastmasters? Rob sends that message to people and takes a video of their response throughout the month so that we could hear what others have to say. Why did they join and why did they stay? We have many reasons, and so do I. But I want you to hear from the First Lady, the First Lady of Toastmasters. She never sought out to be a groundbreaker. She's the product of a small town in Nebraska. Kind of reminds me of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. So think back in the days when there was black and white television and the stay-at-home mom who prepared meals for her family. Her husband went to work and she stayed home. It wasn't a punishment. It was a time of reflecting on family. So family is first. And then we have Toastmasters. We have a Toastmasters family. Once we join a club, the people that we are surrounded with make us feel comfortable, make us feel welcome, and make us want to be our best. So now we have a role model. At the time when there was black and white TV and other small things for women to do, Helen had two children, a son and a daughter. And when they grew up and moved out of the house, guess what? She was bored. She was so busy when the children were growing up, she became bored and decided, I'm going to go out there and find some work to do. But when she decided to go out and look for work, she did have excellent skills. She had excellent communication and desires as any woman would, but she was a trailblazer. Her good friend Eileen Hope from San Diego, and many Toastmasters may remember Eileen, said she was a trailblazer. She was a trailblazer for women in government. She was a trailblazer for women who were working and for women in Toastmasters. Little did we know that a young lady, quiet but not too shy, was born on May 17th, 1926, in Pender, Nebraska. She was a quick study, and she skipped 2 grades in elementary school, which was a one-room schoolhouse in San Diego. She graduated from Pender High School at 15. She became a teacher at 16 after passing Nebraska certification exams. She married a young man named John Joseph Blanchard in 1946. And then she moved to San Diego community 10 years later. So after her kids moved out and finished school, she said, I was bored, and I found that working for the U.S. Navy gave me an interesting opportunity. The interesting opportunity was shamefully disregarding any woman who wanted to join their Toastmasters club. She had to prove herself over and over and over again. So she had a neighbor tell her, well, maybe you could try this organization inside of your company called Toastmasters. When she went to the Toastmasters meeting, they told her she was not allowed. She was not put off by that. She said, okay, I understand. This happens, especially in those days. But when there were limits to women, she found herself saying, I think I'm going to do something about that. And so she went to the meeting, made her peace, and left. She made a remarkable impression on the people that she visited. And 2 weeks later, the president of that club said, our club thinks we would like to invite you to join our club, but we're going to have to disguise your name. So they came up with the letter H Blanchard. And pretty soon, Toastmasters International got nosy. Well, who's H? What does H stand for? So the club had a contest on what should be Helen's first name in this male-only organization. And they came up with Homer. So she went by Homer Blanchard, and then became an anomaly of disguise. People said, well, what does Homer look like? And what is he doing? They had to fess up and come up with, well, we're going to have to spill the beans and tell the truth. Imagine how Helen felt when she was completely exposed by her real name, and she became Helen Blanchard, proud to give her full name as a woman in Toastmasters. It did not take long for her to make her mark in Toastmasters. She was supervisor of a department that was, of course, all men, and they were scientists and engineers. And the name of her department, can anyone guess? It had to do with let me see if I could look it up. It was scientists and engineers working on the torpedo guidance system. Now imagine a female in charge of torpedoes. I bet that brought a big laugh to those when they realized she was not going to back down or be shy about doing what she loved to do. Now, here we are at a point where I would like to have her speak about her journey in Toastmasters when she visited District 12, and you will see her speak. Thank you, Rob, for putting this video together.
85 years ago at YMCA, 2 dozen men heard speeches about the power of communication, the power of public speaking for the ordinary person. I wonder what they would think if they would have known this spun off and rippled out to affect 4 million people in 85 years. We never know what that ripple effect, one meeting or one idea or one principle might have. Of course, Dr. Snow had a glimpse of this before he passed in 1965. He received keys to cities in the United States, in Europe, and in Canada. And then he had to turn that first state postword, the first World Headquarters building in San Diego. But I think even he would be surprised that we come in the last 44 years. Often we don't realize what the results might be because of our. Little did I know is to find out what Toastmasters was all about. And many of you have heard my story, but for those of you who haven't, I want to tell you how I got into it. As was said in the introduction, I worked for the Navy Research and Development Center. Now, this was during the Cold War in the late 60s, early 70s. The Navy had just developed a new torpedo, and in testing the torpedo, found out that it was not being carbon. At first, they thought it was the giant system in the torpedo. Then they found out that it was the sonar systems were being shipped. So offshore facilities in both the Atlantic and Pacific were set up in order to test the sonar system of these ships. I was given the task of having a database with all of that data so that I could correlate it and do testing with it and send it to the Navy Department for their observation of how the fleet is going. In order to do that, these test ranges had to take the data in the same way that the same way and then report the same way. So we could get out to those ranges and tell the male engineers how to do it. Now, in the 1970s, a woman did not go out to train male engineers. And I'll tell you, that was rough. I knew my business, but I had to prove myself over and over again. So one day I was reading our newsletter, Center newsletter, and I read the headline, Joint Toastmasters presented the conference. It's exactly what I mean. And so without reading further, if I would have, you can see the slogan of the day, being on the move. But instead I called, and of course I was told that it was all male organization, that they were sorry that I couldn't join. So I accepted that. And then I had a phone call about 2 weeks later saying that the president had discussed this at the club, and the members had voted to accept me as a member. I didn't want to change the meeting, I didn't want to be it, and I really hesitated about even going. But then I thought, I have to take, I just go and see what all of this is all about, see if they can help me. I went, of course, if I saw the program in action, I joined. They sent my application to the world headquarters as Blanchard. And we were kind of surprised when the world headquarters came back and said to be the first name of Blanchard. I remember the president turned to me and said, Helen, what male name would you like? Yeah, I don't give a really. So now I was mulling over male names and rejecting them. I never said, why don't we name them? I had given my icebreaker so that membership knew something about me. And the winner wrote a delightful little story about the fact that my maid was Palace. I like cool making. I would appreciate it. And I think you mentioned something about Helen of Troy. So why not Helen? I told her until November of 1971, when women were allowed in federal clubs. And of course, in August of 1973, women were allowed in all of those clubs to change their bylaws to them. That was my entrance in the Toastmasters. Believe me, when I gave that first speech for communication and leadership manual, the icebreaker, I had no idea at all that I was breaking the ice in the leadership manual. I had no idea of that ripple effect. I would be helping to open the Toastmaster membership door for so many dedicated and capable members. As I said, this was 1970, 5 years after Dr. Stanley left us. I so wish I could have the honor of knowing him. However, I did transfer to many men who did know him. One was Roy Graham, that's later to remember Roy. We worked together in a few situations, and he used to tell me about the good old days. Where the men had the meeting in the parlor, and the women were in the kitchen baking cookies and making coffee. We served them after their meeting. He was always good about so much. But to the men that I knew who knew Dr. Stanley, I became so impressed with this gentleman. He gave us this remarkable organization. And he might have followed the path that so many of his others did, Carnegie, and made this a for-profit business. But instead, he gave us all this tremendous gift. So here we are celebrating 85 years of Stanley Club #1. I was thinking of the ripple effect that this club has had on its hundreds of members through the years. As we think the power generated because of that meeting so many years ago, let us also be aware of our actions that might have ripple effects. When we serve as a role model, when we ask for friends during our programs, all of these have ripple effects that we have years. In closing, I want to congratulate the members of this very special talk that over the years have helped so many look toward their full potential. May you continue to serve as an inspiration to all of us as you continue to add those remarkable 85 years of benefits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ross, for bringing that.
Tom,
Oh.
let me add something, Tom. I want to say that
okay.
Helen gave a remarkable presentation, and I hope that you were able to hear it, even though it sounded a little bit muddy, but she was a remarkable woman. So from a quiet, small town, one-room classroom in Nebraska to becoming the international president, first female in Toastmasters, she did a remarkable jump. Do you see the jump that she made in her life and how we could do the same thing with her as our guide, with her as our mentor, and someone we look up to. I think that we could say yes, male and female. We could say yes to what Toastmasters can do. And Greg Scott and Jeremiah Lyle have comments in the chat about her book, Breaking the Ice. I think that when she made a general statement that I'm not trying to be a remarkable person, a well-known person. I am happy to stay in the background, but her legacy that she left behind left this organization with something we'll never forget. Because when she passed away on May 17th, on May 11th, I should say, she was 86 years old. And that was in the, what year was that? That was 20, somebody, Greg Scott might remember. I didn't even write it down. But I think that when she passed away, she left a legacy, and her children passed on all the information that we have in front of us. Remember Helen Blanchard. Remember Homer. Because if you get out of Toastmasters, all you can get out of Toastmasters, you'll never get out of Toastmasters. Back to you, Tom.